today I want to celebrate Bitcoin Genesis Day and Satoshi Nakamoto, who is someone, well, who knows if it's someone? Is it a collective of people? Was it really an individual that was able to conceive of this incredible thing that we have come to know of as Bitcoin? It's an incredible story. I've spent a great deal of time researching Bitcoin, and yet I have never invested in it. I've never, well, been able to afford to invest in it, and more's the pity. I remember its prices being so ridiculously low, and today, as of the start of 2025, it's at absolute record prices. It's gone way over $100,000, and it's looking like it's being adopted in really profound ways by significant numbers of people. And yet the story of the genesis of Bitcoin and what it was and what it's become is absolutely fascinating. A few years ago, someone tapped me on the shoulder to say, did you know that Bitcoin as it's traded now, BTC, is not the original Bitcoin? And it's a fascinating story that ventures, far into conspiracy territory. And of course, conspiracy is a natural part of life. But the story of what BTC is now, where it's become completely dependent on the Lightning Network and these other things that actually slow down the exchange and the sort of Bitcoin that can be, Bitcoin in its original conception, in the original Bitcoin papers, was truly an act of revolutionary. It is already transforming the world, and even in its current state may well go on to radically shape the future that we're heading towards. And yet the BTC right now is like this watered down version of what the original version was. Now there's another version of Bitcoin that's called BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, which really does embody that original setup. In fact, it's still connected to that first Bitcoin that was ever mined, because the other times that other versions of Bitcoin were created had to branch off from this original format, from this original coin, and the protocol, the algorithm that went along with it. And there was a time a couple of years ago when it seemed like BSV might suddenly really explode, because it's been adopted by so many businesses, and there were some real ardent supporters of BSV, because it enables things to happen that BTC will never be able to do. People can use it as a token of an exchange where there's what they call basically the costs that go on top of any particular exchange of money are so vanishingly small that people can use it for what they call micropayments, for these incredibly small amounts of money being transferred backwards and forwards, something that BTC will never be able to compete with, because of the various networks that it depends upon for its survival. Just like the thing that it was trying to replace, which was the dependence upon banks to act as an intermediary for all of the exchanges that were going on between people trading with each other, and all the percentages that they would impose in order to be able to facilitate that commerce. BSV actually had the capacity for people to create smart contracts, to be able to have these incredibly small exchanges of value without needing to have a third-party intermediary getting in on all of the action. And unfortunately, what's happened to Bitcoin since its genesis is that it's enabled third parties to get in there and to basically be able to start creaming the fat off all of those interactions. So the great value of BTC as people are investing in it, basically because they're concerned about the prices of gold and the solidity of the dollar and other currencies, it and it's obviously also being manipulated by huge funds that are able to affect markets by where they choose to place their money. I mean, it's very complicated to truly understand why BTC is has the value that it has and whose money's behind it, because it's largely anonymous. It's a really crazy story. I'm definitely not the most educated person on the subject, and yet I have spent a lot of time looking into it because it's just one of the most incredible phenomenon. Yeah, it is a singular phenomenon of our time, and I really want to honour the person or the collective or whoever it was that really conjured up this idea, because it's absolutely phenomenal. The idea of reducing banks from our system of not reducing, removing banks and third-party intermediaries from our system of commerce. It's funny because all wars are banking wars, and the suffering that we are seeing on the world today is so much a result of the meddling that goes on by the finance industries. If it wasn't for the enormous corruption in the banking system and in the insurance system, these enormous funds that have been stripping the wealth from the common man in very deceitful and manipulative ways for such a long time, the concept of creating this token that people could exchange between each other for such vanishingly small amounts of money. Well, my hope is that somehow BSV and the original Bitcoin may still yet have its role to play, as people realize that BTC isn't capable of running an entire economy. At the moment, BTC as it stands would never be a replacement for normal currencies, because it just doesn't have the speed of interaction. The systems that are required to be updated in order to maintain the ledgers for BTC are just insufferably slow for what you actually need. They're slow, they're expensive, and people are taking their percentage, their little bit along the way. So, yeah. It's a wonderful thing. It's been somewhat cursed by meddling, but there's still, well, today I'm celebrating Satoshi Nakamoto and the origin of this idea, which still may yet play an enormous role in transforming this planet. So here's to the Bitcoin Genesis.